Payton Talbott is an interesting guy.
Guys, never try to beat the ocean. The ocean is always going to win. The world's home. Yeah.
In fact, I think this guy might have more interesting outside aspects of his life outside the UFC than I've ever seen.
And it's just a hole that goes through my body, it represents an internal void.
But this guy can bang. Really good, and people are starting to take notice. So much so that he is the biggest favorite on the UFC 303 card, and at minus 1600, he is almost quadruple that of anyone else. But there have been a ton of hyped prospects that have walked through the UFC's doors this year, and to be honest, it's not been great for them in 2024. Benoit Saint-Denis got smashed. Joe Pyfer versus Jack Hermansson, Vitor Petrino, and of course, Mike Malott. And that's just to name a few. Are we about to make the same mistake overhyping Talbott here? And what about his opponent, Ghemmouri, for God's sakes? Is he being overlooked?
Who's Yanis?
He's my opponent.
I'm supposed to know that.
Yanis Ghemmouri.
Well, let's find out. I'm Max from MMA On Point. Thank you as always to our YouTube members for keeping this kind of content coming. And this is the Unfamiliars for Payton Talbott. Payton Talbott, like I said, he's already worked up a little bit of a storm in his UFC run over just the past year, but despite being one of the most talked about prospects in the game, he has not fought in front of a crowd for the UFC, with all three of his Zuffa appearances being at that godforsaken hype vacuum we know as the UFC Apex. This weekend represents really his first opportunity to connect with fans in an arena, even though he's already 2-0 with two huge finishes in the big show. But let's start at the beginning. Born in 1999, which makes me feel very old. Payton Talbott is a Nevada native and a Choctaw Nation member. Like a lot of UFC fighters, Talbott was involved in sports at high school, but unlike most, he didn't just stick with wrestling. He played baseball, football, wrestled, skateboarding, snowboarding, breakdancing, basically everything. He didn't actually walk into an MMA gym until he was 18 years old, and we will come back to it later, but this is kind of indicative of what makes him different to most guys in the sport. His amateur run of 5 wins, all finishes, no losses convinced him might as well have a crack at going pro, but he had not made his mind up to do this for a living until 2 fights into his professional career.
Declaring your winner by TKO, Payton Talbott!
His record remained flawless, all finishes, until his decision win on the Contender Series that really pissed him off.
I was pretty pissed that I didn't finish him. I felt like I really wanted him to finish him tonight.
And this is where we first saw Payton's high expectations for himself. I mean, the guy broke a record for strikes landed in a Contender Series fight. He backflipped out of a takedown attempt spectacularly and won himself a UFC contract, but he was unhappy because he couldn't get the finish. And he did not make that same mistake in his next 2 fights. Technically, the guy is just a whiz on the feet. He hates to grapple, even though he definitely has the chops for it with that wrestling background and submissions on his record. He likes to entertain the crowd, and he just doesn't think people want to see clinching and grappling. But he's definitely no plodding striker either. He is a pressure fighter with a big frame for 135 pounds. He's got excellent timing and nice power in all of his strikes. He just has a really obvious natural knack for the movement needed for the sport. He doesn't rely on power or speed, just makes really good reads, lands all of his counters at the exact right timing to put maximum power into his strikes. But the thing I really want to talk about, the thing that differentiates him from most of the young guys coming up and a lot of the guys in the sport in general, is his mindset. Yeah, he's got a bit of the arrogance and self-confidence that I guess you need to fight other people in a cage for money.
I was yelling at him the whole time I was bombing. I was like, wake up, Cameron, come on. Come on, Cameron, wake up.
But if you look underneath all that, it's pretty clear that MMA is just not the be-all and end-all of this guy's life. Like I said earlier, he wasn't solely focused on wrestling in school. He dabbled in a bit of everything and actually aspired to be a pro footballer before he just didn't grow enough. He learned to play guitar, bass, piano, and DJ, and thought about becoming a musician. He plays a shitload of Super Smash Bros. And Elden Ring, which makes him my boy. He is a pretty genuinely talented skateboarder and motorcycle rider, He's clearly into drugs, but only the fun kind. He loves anime, he went to college, he's got a bachelor degree in psychology, he dabbled with the idea of doing that for a while. And if you go on his YouTube channel, you can see some very acid trippy editing on his vlogs, which he enjoys making. This guy has more hobbies and interests outside of fighting than anyone that I have ever seen make it this far as a professional. I know we don't see a lot of the time what guys like to do behind the scenes, but I mean, Talbott seems different. He strikes me as the kind of guy who just knows that MMA is a pretty tenuous career. Not to say that he's not all in on being a pro fighter. I just mean he's in a different state mentally and emotionally with this, and that's what makes it so unique to me. This is a job to him. It's a job he clearly enjoys and values and wants to succeed in, but it's just one of the many things that he does and one of the many things that make up who he is. He definitely does have that mean, arrogant streak that so many successful fighters need to have. When you hear him talk about past opponents or upcoming fights, he's just vicious.
Looks like he's got a good amount of muscle. Too bad muscle doesn't win you a fight. He kind of looks like a gay choir guy.
When asked if he has any heroes, he says he prefers villains. When asked why he started training, he jokes that it's what the voices told him to do, and yeah, part of it is, you know, him being kind of an edgy hipster. But just hearing the dude talk and listening to him in interviews, you just get a little bit of an insight into how his brain works, and like I've been saying, it just kind of is different. He might not have that singular tunnel vision drive and focus to becoming a world champion, but that doesn't mean that he isn't giving it 100%. It's kind of healthy in a weird way, I think. I mean, if you have that singular focus and drive, dedicate your whole life, all your free time, and sacrifice everything you enjoy doing into it, and like 99% of fighters, you end up not reaching that goal, what does that leave you with? Probably a lot of brain injuries and emptiness, I imagine. And all of this makes me curious to see how the MMA world is going to react to him. He's not traditional. He wears the nose ring, the polished nails, he pole dances for core strength. He is in touch with his feminine side. Talbott has said in interviews that he saw MMA when he was younger and he had no interest. The macho, sloppy violence wasn't for him, but when he saw fighters like Conor McGregor, who were like poetry in motion, that's what motivated him to start. That's what sold him on the sport. He's young, he's brash, he's unapologetically himself, and I can see him being either a huge star or absolutely despised by the majority of MMA fans, right? He reminds me of Israel Adesanya and Sean O'Malley in that sense. Both of those guys are inarguably stars, even if they definitely split the demographic a bit, right? I mean, the potential for Talbott is enormous. He's just gone viral for skateboarding with Tony Hawk, for God's sake. And that's why I think it's so interesting that this weekend we get to see him fight in front of a crowd for the first time, ever. Talbott's never even attended a UFC show, and now he will be opening up the prelims on a massive card in T-Mobile Arena. Yeah, it lost Conor McGregor, which would have made it the biggest card of the year, pretty much. But it's still pretty big. Is that experience going to bring out the best in Talbott, or is the pressure going to break him? It's a bit of a crossroads for him, especially with some people listing him as a minus 1,600 favorite. These are those fights that trip up these young hype trains, the ones they're supposed to win, the ones where there is expectation on them. His opponent, Yanis Ghemmouri, is an experienced fighter with a really well-rounded game. He's got dangerous, powerful leg kicks, and he's a really capable grappler in his own right. He's patient, he fights with a lot of intelligence, and at 12-2, of course, he isn't a nobody in this game. But with an 0-1 UFC record, that loss being a TKO against a much less dangerous striker than Talbott in William Gomez, it does feel like the UFC wants to give Talbott a big coming out party. I mean, Cameron Simon, who Talbott just absolutely dominated in his last fight, is rated much higher than Ghemmouri, but minus 1,600? That means the bookies give Talbott a 94% chance of winning this fight. 94%. I understand giving him maybe minus 500 in this one. He should be a big favorite, but Ghemmouri isn't a soccer mum. He's a very decent guy with a lot of good international experience, and with those takedowns and leg kicks, he represents some things that Payton really hasn't had to deal with yet. The over-expectation, the hype, the crowd, this is definitely a dangerous situation for Talbott to be in. MMA is unpredictable. Let's see what happens, but it is hard to argue with why so many people are expecting Talbott to win. But what do you guys think? Do you dig Talbott's energy? Do you like that he's a character outside of the cage? Or do you find it a bit weird? Do you think he's got a big future at this level? Let me know what you think in the comments down below, and don't forget to hit the like button to let us know that you want to see more of this kind of content. Thanks so much as always to our YouTube members for their ongoing support. You guys keep the lights on, and if you were interested in joining their ranks and getting access to some pretty cool perks, make sure you click that join button down below. But thank you for watching, guys, and enjoy the fights.